Well, almost 2 years later, news of Elden Ring has finally arrived, and with it, gameplay as well as a release date. And in this video, I kind of want to break down the trailer that we saw, as well as go through some of the expectations we have for Elden Ring, based on some of the things we know already about the game. The first thing I want to talk about is how to describe Elden Ring. Elden Ring is described as a sort of evolution of the Souls formula. If you think of Dark Souls as the natural evolution of Demon Souls, a game that's very similar but in its own universe with its own mechanics that are maybe slightly different, I think it's fair to expect Elden Ring to be something in this vein. It's going to be drastically similar to Dark Souls in terms of combat and gameplay. I think from what we've seen in the trailer, that's pretty obvious at this point. But it's not like a Bloodborne or Sekiro. The differences between Bloodborne and Sekiro are a lot more drastic than Dark Souls and Demon Souls, if you get what I'm saying here. You're not going to go into Elden Ring, I don't think, and not know how to play. You're going to be able to block, parry, probably roll, have iframes, and everything that you have become accustomed to in Dark Souls is probably all going to be there when you're playing Elden Ring. I think in some ways this is going to be a disappointment to some players that were hoping Elden Ring would be another type of Bloodborne or Sekiro, where From Software maybe stepped a little bit further outside the box and developed a game that had at its core a Souls-like game, but had some, new nuances and flares, maybe a little bit more than we'll probably see in Elden Ring. But for other people, I think they're just happy to have news and that, there is an Elden Ring game coming that's, markedly similar to the Souls franchise. Another part of this is the introduction of open world. Now, what open world means to people varies a little bit, but I think everyone would concur that it generally means an overworld where you can explore and kind of go in any direction you wish. The size of this is really unknown right now. We don't know how big the open world's going to be, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near like Skyrim or Witcher 3. We are talking about From Software here, which is a much smaller studio than, Bethesda or CD Projekt Red. So their limited team is probably not going to be able to make a world that size. And I think you would be probably wiser to expect something, in terms of style or connectivity like Dark Souls on a much grander scale with, horseback riding in between. I don't know exactly how big it's going to be, but I would expect something like that instead of something like, Skyrim. Of course, with this open world comes other questions like, is there a map? Can you see locations on this map if there is one? Is there a mini-map? Can you fast travel? These are all things that you think about when you're talking about an open world game that have never really made it into a From Software conversation before, because they technically haven't made anything open world before. So I don't know what the answer to these is. I don't know if these are going to be in the game. But if you're just going historically, I would suppose they probably won't be. Which kind of brings us to just generally what you can expect with Elden Ring. I think it's reasonable to expect things that you've seen in Dark Souls or Demon Souls to be in this game, namely invasions, co-ops, probably some covenants. I don't see why they wouldn't be there. This was not a thing in Demon Souls, obviously, but Dark Souls was an evolution of that. I don't see them cutting something that's widely popular out of Elden Ring because it was so successful in Dark Souls. I think the magic is going to be similar. If you look at the animations, they already look very similar to the Souls franchise. And we do know that the game is 1 to 4 players, so there will be some online play of some sort. So co-ops invasions is obviously not out of the question. I also think the leveling and class system and equipment will work much the same way, meaning that you'll probably choose a starting class that dictates your starting equipment and what base stats you have, but from there you can probably go any direction you want, and that leveling will be, some of these stats, and you need to meet requirements for certain equipment in order to wear it, like weapons, etc., or use those weapons. And I think this will all be very, very similar to you. There presently isn't any information known about the upgrade system in this game as far as weapons go and armor, how if you can upgrade them, how it works. Does it work similarly to Dark Souls? Is it like Dark Souls 3? Is it like Dark Souls 2? These use somewhat different systems, so just saying it's like Dark Souls probably doesn't really clarify that in some way. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a similar system, but maybe slightly refined or different in some way. This is actually one of the things I'm most curious about and have it on my list to ask Bandai Namco or From Software at the first chance I get, because I think this is something people will really want to know. As far as new mechanics go, we know of stealth, horseback riding, and horseback combat. And as far as stealth goes, you have to wonder a little bit if this isn't going to draw inspiration from Sekiro. I mean, From Software has already proved they can make stealth. So this is something that I expect to see probably. I can't envision it any other way, like the way they did in Sekiro, with enemies being able to hear you or maybe detect you if you're, move into their vision, etc., with maybe some areas where you can crouch and take cover. But we'll have to see. Something that really I have a hard time wrapping my head around, seeing how similar the game looks to the Souls franchise, is if combat scenarios are designed to be clearable with stealth or open combat, much the way Sekiro was, that opens up like a whole new dimension of gameplay for a Souls-like game that's not Sekiro. Stealth traditionally hasn't been a huge part. It wasn't a huge part of Bloodborne, wasn't a huge part of the Souls games. So it'd be really interesting to see if they design these encounters to be cleared both ways, or maybe they just have a few, or if it doesn't play a huge role at all, and what role stealth plays, in its entirety. When it comes to horseback riding, you can summon your mount. It seems to appear like, I'm going to guess you use an item that summons it for you, and you ride it around on the landscape at will, dismount it, etc. It probably vanishes. So you're not going to be like, where'd my mount go? Probably, I would imagine it's just going to be callable on command, not unlike other open world games. And how mounted combat's going to work, I don't really know. You don't see a whole ton of mounted combat in the gameplay. You see some sort of slow motion attacks and things, but you don't really get a good sense of how mounted combat is going to feel or look from the gameplay. You do see a boss fight where the person is mounted playing, so that's interesting. I mean, the fact that you can ride your horse in a boss battle on horseback is going to be interesting. I don't know if they'll be able to pull it off. In my experience, mounted combat is a little bit janky in just about every game you play, but we are talking about From Software here, who is the master at making combat good. So we'll see how that plays out. So in Elden Ring, you appear to be called what's called a Tarnished. This is probably taking place of Hallowed or Ashen One, but it should be a familiar concept to you. You are damaged goods in some way, seeking redemption or elevation in status, and there is a Firekeeper-like character that, clearly is present in the trailer. So I think those parts of the game, the general arc of it is going to feel really familiar as well. So those of you who are familiar with the Souls games should, be right at home there as well. Honestly, looking over the trailer, I don't know how many times at this point, I really get the sense that Elden Ring overlaps the Souls franchise in terms of story. I think they may be loosely linked in some way. Or, the fact that the trailer directly mentions, the fact that you have the Flame of Ambition and talks about extinguishing your flame, that those who fight will die in an unending curse. These are the things you would expect in a Souls game. The hollowing, the undying curse, you can't die, but you're not really alive. It's a very, very similar concept. And in some ways, I almost wonder if the Elden Ring symbol, the sort of logo, isn't interlocking dark signs that represent separate worlds or planes of existence that sort of overlap in some way. Either Elden Ring being one and Dark Souls being one, or, the separate Souls games being universes that overlap. Or if Elden Ring isn't the overarching universe that all these other games fall into. I am not a lore master at these games by any means, but I think it's pretty clear from looking at it that there is going to be some connection there. It's really hard not to draw parallels looking at things like, hey, there's a guy that looks just like Smo in there. And hey, there's a person that looks just like, the Elite Knight. It's like, where, these characters are iconic from the Souls franchise. What are they doing in the Elden Ring universe if there isn't some overlap? Obviously, we know that From Software likes to reuse some of their assets from Souls game to Souls game, so that's not strange. But does it go beyond that? Does it go beyond and tying these together in some way? I think it does, and I think over time we'll probably find that connection, and those lore hunters out there will probably do a better job of that than me. The last couple things to talk about here are graphically, the game does not look visually impressive. It looks good enough, but it doesn't look very, compared to Demon Souls Remake, which looked god tier. This is, a cut below that, and I think that's going to be disappointing for some people. This game was in a weird place, because when it was first announced, it was announced for PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. In my mind, that means that this game was probably supposed to come out before a next gen, or this current gen was out, and probably got pushed back due to the pandemic. So it's in this weird space where they were developing for the previous generation, but now got pushed back into the next generation, and now we're developing it for those platforms as well. So it is coming out on PlayStation 5, as well as Xbox Series X. And my guess is that it'll probably have an upgraded or better version for those systems. We don't know this for sure yet, but it got caught in a weird place. Kind of reminds me of Biomutant in some ways. Biomutant is another game that was supposed to come out a couple years ago or a year ago on, last gen, and it got pushed all the way into the next gen, and now people are knocking it for its graphics because it's like, what the hell? How come you don't have a next gen graphics on this game? And so I feel like that same thing has happened to Elden Ring to some degree. I'm hoping that doesn't make the next-gen versions look worse or the PC version look worse, but it's hard not to be slightly concerned because when you look at games that are designed solely for next-gen, games like Returnal, games like Ratchet and Clank, that just look absolutely mind-blowingly good, You don't see that when you look at Elden Ring, and I'm not sure you will see that unless there's some major overhaul between now and launch. And the last thing to talk about is the time between now and launch. The game comes out on January 21st of next year. This is about 7.5 months away at this point, 7 and a little less than a half months. And what does that mean for the game in terms of what we're going to see between now and January? Will there be a beta test or a network test? Historically, From Software has done that. So potentially, if we see one, will it be this fall? Will there be one? Or what will they do? Will we see more trailers between now and then? Will there be some sort of event that showcases it where content creators go and get to play or whatever? What will we see between now and then is really what's up in the air. And it's really anyone's guess. But they do have enough time between now and then, I think, hopefully to get some sort of network test up for everyone to play on. And if that does happen, I would expect that maybe to happen sometime in October or November at the latest in order to get things ready for launch. What do you guys think? What did you guys notice in the trailer? Did I miss anything? Are there things that, you're worried about? Are there things you're really excited for that no one is mentioning? What do you guys think about Elden Ring? It's finally here. What are your thoughts? I want to hear from you.